Ignite, sparked by BBB, where conversations are taking place to change the future.
All right, Debbie.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope the coffee break was worth it.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to get started into the next conversation. We're going to be talking, we have two different topics on financial wellness. One is more from the business employee side, and the other one is more so family-based and how to deal with your personal finances. So we'll start off with the business side of financial wellness. And again, same rules, 60 seconds. You'll hear that lovely song. Most of you all ignored over the break. That's fine. And then you'll, respond as best you can. Be respectful, which you all have been so far, and just enjoy the conversation. All right. Why should employers prioritize financial wellness as part of their overall employee wellness strategy? Gary?
I would say, if your employees don't have their financial house in order, they're going to be distracted every single day. And they'll be on their cell phone, on the web, and bill collectors are calling them all day long. And if they don't know why they're working, they don't have a budget at home, they don't know why that paycheck's so important, that's going to offset another expense, or let them go on vacation, or pay for college, or a house, then you can't get their full attention. So finances are very important.
Mark?
So you can take that one step further. Here's the bad side of it, right? If somebody gets themselves overextended, and let's just say you're in a retail type business, got product, sometimes that behavior. And I can tell you personally, way back in the day, the retail days, we had a gentleman working for us part-time, and he was pitching in for crops. Everybody loved him. He was the epitome of what you wanted as an employee and a leader in your organization. You know he was part-time, but he would have himself overextended and start making bad decisions. That didn't end well. And it was just because he got overextended. He's like, how do I cover my bills? Because he took on too many things. He didn't understand what cash flow was and how he needed to not get that next boy. And so I think it takes away the opportunity for someone to say, I've got to do this because they think they're taking care of their family, but then they let
Employers should prioritize financial health because it acts as a hedge against inflation, dramatic economic changes. Storms are going to come. Winter is going to come as we know. And we can mitigate a lot of risk if we keep financial health.
I have to agree. Barry tells us all the time. I've heard him say this countless times. What happened during COVID was we noticed a lot of families actually could not support themselves without their paychecks that they got twice a month. And the problem with that is that a lot of people didn't know how to be financially aware of what was actually coming into their household. And so a lot of times you'll see what used to be a statistic was 1 out of 10 people couldn't write $1,000 check today. And now it's 1 out of 7 people can, which is another statistic that Barry likes to bring up often. So that's a really big issue, to not be able to write $1,000 check. I mean, I think there was something that popped up on Instagram. Baby boomers actually have a panic attack when they notice that their accounts have actually gone under $80,000. I don't think anybody my age can say that their account has even reached that in savings.
Historically, you've got the brakes on this problem because that's why you have the corporate store. And employers wanted you to be financially in trouble, so you'd stay to work. So there is, 50, 60 years of baggage that you've got to overcome.
I mean, if you go back to what you talk about COVID, hospitality, that was make or break for a lot of restaurants. I saw people just give up and retire, but it was so hard for people. The ones that survived, there was a family entity a lot of times. And if somebody needed, people pitched in. And there was a lot of loyalty that came out of that. And people wanting other people to do well. So I think the ability, the culture of a business but want to do well and have others do well, I think that brings a lot to success.
I have to agree. There's a sense of adaptability too when it comes to stuff like that. Like my family businesses, everybody knew they had to step in to make sure that the employees could still have a job during COVID. And if they couldn't come to work because they were sick, they were still covered. And that was part of having that family aspect and being involved in the businesses. What key components should be included in an effective employee financial wellness program?
I think there should be some education. It's amazing how many people don't understand finances and expenses. So many companies will have, oh, we have a 401k, with a 3% match. But they really need to be able to educate their associates so that they understand a cash flow, a budget, and how you do that. And then also, a number of people that I know, their favorite word is compound. Start early, start young, and your investments will compound.
And whether it's incentives or it's mandatory, there's got to be some way to engage their employees in the program. There are a lot of employers that have programs. We take part in a lot of them in our roles at the credit union and our partnerships throughout the Commonwealth. And the problem is they're very low, either low attended or low utilized by the employees. So we just talked about a lot of the issues that these financial wellness programs will solve. But if the employees aren't taking advantage of it, then you still run into those same issues, even though the employer might provide these tools.
Think back to there was, and I go back to my boys, I got right with boys, and my oldest first got out of college, and I said, make sure we start investing now, that I can afford it. We need to afford 23% of the match, but you understand. He started listing his expenses compared to his salary. It wasn't bad salary. And I said, do 1%. Next year, add 1%, and then add another percent, so you can max out. And so you can do it in baby steps to get there. It doesn't have to all be at once. And he never felt, I said, if you do it this way, you'll never feel it. But if you wait, I waited until I was like 28 to start. I lost 8 years of compound. And it could have been just a small minor amount, but it would have made so much difference. And so you don't have to jump in all at once. But part of that is for us to teach our kids as well. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Let's do something. Create a habit. And then we agree to build on the habit. I follow them. But I think that's the piece of the deal. Then again, you look at my generation. Over half the population doesn't have any retirement savings. That's crazy. And because they didn't have people to talk to them.
I have to agree. My dad was more of the money manager, where I was more like my mom, who liked to shop and not really think about money. And so he was more so the bad cop that would sit down and say, listen, when you're older and you actually can't work, or you're like me and you don't want to work in the restaurant anymore, you need to make sure that you can still live a comfortable lifestyle later on. And this is how you do it. But I had somebody that taught me that. Most people today don't. Most people in the workforce today, or even college students that have severe debt because of going to school, don't know how to manage their money. Did I see a hand go up? Oh, okay. So how can businesses encourage open conversation about financial wellness without making their employees feel uncomfortable or exposed? I think Sabrina brought this up one other time when she came to speak. A lot of people don't want to talk about their money because they don't want to face the problem that they're having with it. But the reality is, you kind of have to sit down and face those demons to find a solution to the problem. Kind of like when we have uncomfortable conversations here. So what are some ways you think businesses can do that?
Well, then you got people in here, that's their job. You invite people in that know what they're talking about to share, and they can have their private one-on-ones later after they share the big picture.
So bringing in companies like Financial Services of Virginia or Virginia Credit Union to come and talk to your employees about how to manage their money is really important, because at the end of the day, not only are, it's their business to get future customers and clients, but it's also going to help build productive people who are able to manage their money and provide services. Because those teams tend to lead to mental health or getting into deep holes like Mark was talking about. So what are some other ways?
Yeah,
Maybe
bringing in
programs?
outside people makes many people feel comfortable. Like a lot of people don't want to share their money situation with co-workers, management, leadership. So that outside expert that can talk to the educational piece and then arrange a one-on-one.
We do that twofold at the credit union. Even though we offer this to our community partners, we have a third party that does one-on-one coaching. And we incentivize employees to meet with a one-on-one coach just for overall wellness initially. And if they want to dive deeper, they can. I'm also an internal coach for employees. And I make it very clear, like from the moment that we have our initial conversation, that whatever is said is a private conversation and is confidential. I will not say anything past what we are talking about right here. I even recommend, like, if you were able to work remotely, let's have this meeting remotely so that you're not even in an office space, just to maintain privacy. And I think it's been successful. I've had a number of employees reach out and just kind of want to sit down with me. And I ask them however comfortable they wanted to share is how we can go. If there's something that they don't feel comfortable sharing, then let's take the next step and get our third party involved. But I think incentivizing the employees to do that has also been really helpful.
What are some other resources?
In my business, we employ 1099 folks. Some folks want to be subcontractors, they're just getting started. And so, as of now, I'm the CFO. I'm willing to delegate the responsibility, but right now, the CFO is like, hey, the business, you're responsible for your taxes. Have to think about the business on it. Take down your gas mileage. Buy tools, all these business related purchases. Gotta get them to our tax professionals, so we cannot get the tax debt. And so things like that, definitely I'm talking about.
Rob, I'm gonna say one thing and then I'm gonna let you speak. I remember I saw this video of this 21-year-old who said, I didn't realize that I had to do my taxes because I thought my business or my work did it for me. What?
Wow.
Yeah.
I think when I turned 18, I remember my dad saying, okay, now you gotta figure this out every year. Robert, oh.
That's interesting, right? Between today's society and yesterday's society. And the reason I say that is I had to start doing my taxes as soon as I had my mom didn't do my taxes. When it came out filling out college applications, loans, they didn't do it. It was up to me to do all that work. And today, a lot of times I tend to take over for our kids, which I think is a huge mistake. And it's more, no, go ahead and do it. It's time. I'm there to support you, but it's tax time. So you're generating cash, it's part-time job for kids.
I have to agree.
I was just gonna add that, it was talking about, how can businesses encourage open conversations? Sometimes we put struggle or lack of financial confidence on entry-level employees or maybe the lower rung of employees in a business and ignore the fact that senior leadership may have the same issues. I never forget, I used to do personal loans, and right before Circuit City went out of business, one of the president of something came in and did a large personal loan because he knew what was coming. But it just rung out to me, he didn't have enough in savings to weather the storm until he found another job. He had to do this on a very high interest rate, personal loan. So being able to address that from the top bottom, opening those conversations up where, people that are in maybe positions of responsibility still are addressing the fact that, hey, I could learn from this, I can benefit from this, and not saying, hey, that's something for someone else over there.
I think we have to understand that people of my generation, a large percentage of them are not living the life that they expected to live at this time. The effect of multi-generational households is staggering. And I think trying to find out exactly where that employee fits in that part of that multi-generational scenario is really, really important. Because people of my age are getting drained. People at the bottom are getting paid enough. So what you created this incredible amount of stress. And I think that as an employer, it would be really beneficial to try to find out where in that ladder are they all.
I have to agree. There's also the concept of living below your means. So for those that don't know, my family's from Greece. I'm used to how people live there, which is a lot more simple than how people live here, whereas here it's more like keeping up with the Joneses type. But again, I grew up in a household where my father taught us that we live below our means. Can we afford to do this? Yes. Is it a necessary expense? No, because we would rather go to Greece in the summertime to be with family and spend our time there. And so I think it just really understanding that of what is a necessity, what is a want is really important, because do we need to have the biggest house in the neighborhood? No, most of the time those rooms are empty. No one's in it, especially here in the States where their family values are not as great as they used to be. And family doesn't come home anymore like they used to. Sorry. All right. What are some low cost or no cost strategies small businesses can implement to support their employees' financial wellness?
They do some simple things. I remember you speaking here last time, talking about how the big bills you're racking up at Starbucks, how you cut it in half. I've never, so for 8 years when I was coaching my clients, and then when I was also doing coaching for people who were unemployed, I'd say, if you want to get hired, you need to network. Go out and have coffee. Don't go to Starbucks. Go to Panera. You buy a $1.89 cup of coffee and you have unlimited refills all day long. Don't pay $7. Pay $7 at Starbucks. Now come here. Barry provides coffee for his associates for free, right? Little things like that, so that your associates don't have to stop and spend. You did the math when you calculated how much, right?
I did.
I remember that. I was like, good for you. I was going to put you on my feed so that.
I'll actually cut down after Starbucks on that too. Because then I started thinking about it and I was like, it's actually dangerous that it's right across the street.
I almost
And you
stopped.
get 2.15.
And now there's a brand new Panera right across the street, so you can get it for
Right,
$1.89.
but my cafe is right over here and I'm gonna convince myself that that's the only coffee I'm gonna drink during the day. Panera has a drive-through. I'm not a fan of drive-through.
Oh, I'm not either, I'm just saying.
Here's my thing with drive-throughs. One, you tend to forget what you were doing before when you're in a drive-through. And two, it's keeping you from socializing. Park it, go inside, talk to the front desk person, say hello, be around people. We're in our cars and in our phones way too much to not be socializing.
One thing, it's funny you were talking about Starbucks. I remember some years ago, my parents had a timeshare in Manhattan. Me and my wife went for one of our anniversaries. And so, you have to do the little timeshare presentation and they take you around and try to get you to buy. And I was like, there's no way we can afford that. And the guy was like, it's just like a cup of coffee a day. What do you spend at Starbucks every day? $10 a day? I was like, who spends $10 a day at Starbucks? And so that killed his whole presentation because that was how he equated it to being able to pay. But it's lifestyle. We teach that a lot in our presentations, but it's lifestyle. Sometimes we elevate this expense and we'll forego this, that, or the other, and because we want to have this lifestyle, whether it be Starbucks or I know when I first started working at Virginia Credit Union as a Krispy Kreme there, I had never seen Krispy Kreme because I live on the other side of town. But that red sign messed me up for a little while, man. It did things to my budget and me, so those things impact our.
So one of the resources, we talked about low cost or no cost, and you all are actually sitting in a low cost or no cost resource, right? So we have Virginia Financial Services of Virginia. We have Virginia Credit Union in here. Those are low cost or no cost services that your small business can send an employee here to learn something. and maybe even take back to the office and say, hey, this is what I learned. And so these are the types of resources and programs that we want to start talking about and letting people know about that don't cost so much. Or having conversations, taking this style and going to your office and saying, hey, I think we should have a conversation, real talk about how our employees' finances are. Right? You don't have to agree with me if you don't actually agree. Although it's nice. How can businesses create financial wellness programs that are inclusive and accessible to employees at all levels? So Rob kind of touched base on this a little bit, but what other ideas do you guys have? I promise I won't start dancing and singing if you take too long to respond, but I do get bored easily.
So the credit union I used to work for, we kind of gamified it a little bit. It was a smaller credit union. So every month I would do a poster and it would be a question about your finances, whether it's like, how do you get your credit report, or, what are the 5 pillars or the pillars of financial health? And they would text their answer. And at the end of the month, I would do a drawing of whoever got the answer correct. And it was for, like swag for the company. So it was something simple, that we did. It was a low cost, effort. I think we live in a world where everyone wants to be incentivized for their time, even if it took 2 seconds. But I found that to be pretty successful. And then we used to do like a newsletter where we would talk about our efforts in the community and just some tips for our employees. And if they took certain classes on our online platform, they would get like little patches that show that they did the work. And then they would get $50 again to buy something from like the company store. So if you want that nice jacket or whatnot, you're gonna take this financial education class.
I love that because I love nice jackets.
Right.
Like the human resource, so folks share all their personal business with me, tell me everything. And I often go in long rabbit holes on financial literacy topics, right? And a Saturday night, I may be at home relaxing with a cup of tea, just nerd out financial literacy. So when the opportunity presents itself, I'll just not impose on any one belief system, but just try to use some ideas that may benefit them and create some more advantageous outcomes. Financial literacy is definitely a hot topic that don't get it.
I have to agree. And on that note, it's time for me to shut up and have James and Ben come up. I think it's just James, right?
Yeah, for now, yeah.
Perfect. All right. And then I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's still good morning. Wanted to introduce myself, James Schreiber, Benjamin Haynes. We had a long commute today. We are on the 3rd floor. So we're Financial Services of Virginia. We are a local independent financial services firm. We specialize in small businesses and individuals on financial advising, financial wellness. I'm the pseudo group specialist on the 401k side, the retirement side, and the educational wellness. I will say, y'all made my job really easy. You know a lot of the points we're going to talk about today, but I kind of want to give some updates, some stats. The world's changing quite a bit, especially in financial wellness on the employee side. To give me an idea, so I can tailor this. Raise some hands. Business owners, who's business owners? Okay. HR, management. So a good little mix across. Wears many hats, right? So we'll kind of hit on a few different pieces today. We tested it, I swear. Here we go. Okay. That's us. So what is financial well-being? Your employees having the day-to-day control over their finances. Knowing that they can come in and have the capacity to absorb any financial shock. I know some of y'all mentioned, you have those employees that are good or have past history that one thing kind of takes them out completely. And now you have a bad employee or a bad situation, and that's a cancer. Unfortunately, that can kind of build in a company and people talk and things get worse, and somebody's bad day turns into everybody's bad day. So being on track for financial goals, there is an issue right now in some companies with baby boomers staying longer than they have in the past. So that's for businesses, increasing healthcare costs. They're generally the ones that sometimes productivity goes down a little bit. It is starting to be a drain on overall companies, especially on the healthcare side. So if you have an average workforce that's a lot on the older side, your healthcare costs are really high. So really starting to figure out why they're there. Do they love their job, or did they not really have the education in the past that they maybe could have used beforehand? So today we're going to do a few things. I'm going to go through some facts, some areas, some importance on financial wellness. We're also going to go through very quickly a financial wellness workshop on retirement. Promise I won't steal your thunder. I'm an avid, loyal Virginia Credit Union member, so I don't want them hurting my interest rates. So well, we want to show you kind of what that looks like, what a robust financial education platform looks like, and just making sure that, you know, maybe there's some stuff you haven't seen, or your employees seeing this type of information, and making sure that it's out there for you. So right now, what's the productivity like out there? So 45% of employees are distracted by work due to personal financial issues. That's half your workforce. So they're coming into work, they're thinking about their credit card debt, they're thinking about their college savings, am I ever going to retire? And the one thing that I don't want, and most people don't want, is HR or the business owners giving them those answers. Now you're bridging that gap between work life and personal life, but also now you're kind of on the hook a little bit. You could tell them the wrong thing and they could think about it later on. Especially if you have a 401k or a SEP IRA or a simple IRA plan, you're the person signing off on that plan. Now you have liability too. So what we want to do, and what other firms like to do, is come in and be the third party. Let us be the one that comes in to tell them, to educate them. We have the background on it. We have the knowledge on it. Take you out of the liability side. 55% are stressed or distracted with their finances. Spend 3 more hours each week dealing with it during the work week. So now we're talking about that coming in the mix. They're getting those phone calls that they don't want from creditors from other areas. Productivity goes down, right? That hurts you, that hurts the bottom line, that hurts the businesses. Hurts them too. So stress in their lives. It also raises jobs. So what can financial wellness do? Financial wellness, so 2 things. One, it is imperative in today's world on a competitive basis. More and more companies, especially more on the newer startups, are having financial wellness programs in place. We deliver them quite often. Some are now virtual. So that's kind of the new buzz, is we do Zooms for a lot of our companies. People can sign on, people can sign off. Having some sort of financial workshop is important, especially if you have a 401k or retirement plan in place. The Department of Labor wants to know that there's something enforced there too. So there has to be some sort of financial workshop schedule and agenda. So what are the benefits with it? Helps reduce stress, helps coping with inflation, improves focus and productivity, raises overall job satisfaction and retention. Provide access, make aware, and offer assistance. Kind of the 3 benefits we want to make sure that are out there. So we got to provide access first. What's the programs? What's the platforms? Is this somebody coming in once a quarter? Is this a Zoom that somebody can reach out to and be a part of? Is this saved events that are out there that people can kind of research and do on their own? Making aware, what's the communication to deliver that package? Is it just HR sending out one email with no follow-up? Or is it something on a newsletter that comes out on a systematic basis to make people aware of it, and then offering assistance? You know, when that employee does come and say, hey, I'm getting foreclosed, I don't know what to do, what's your answer, right? And then those are tough conversations that really, if you don't have an outside source to talk through, like y'all said, that third party, it's very important to kind of have an outside source to not bridge that gap between the personal and the relationship there. So what are our main core benefits, and kind of how has that world changed? Because that world has changed, especially in Virginia, drastically here recently. So we've got healthcare and HSA plans, I apologize for that. That's HSA. I'm sure you all are familiar with that one. Healthcare is a ever-changing environment, and I will put out there, I'm not a healthcare expert or want to be. It's a different world out there, but making sure you have communication, and more programs and platforms are going to an HSA platform, because it allows the younger folks to put more money in on a tax-free basis, lets it grow tax-deferred. If it's used for medical expenses, it's tax-free, and it allows for older individuals to still go to the old traditional plan. So it's kind of helping out with overall premium. So HSAs are growing rapidly, quickly. Retirement funding vehicles 401ks, IRAs, simple IRAs, SEP IRAs, there's a bajillion of them, group life and disability. Also an important board benefit. The only main change is group life on a permanent basis is coming more. So a lot of companies out there are trying to figure out how do they offer benefits without a cost to the employer. One of those is group life insurance. So a lot of companies and carriers have come out with group whole life, group universal life policies to where the employee pays for it, but the employee doesn't have to get underwritten. So the benefit is, hey, if you got somebody who's unhealthy, can't get insurance, we're not going to pay for it, but you can kind of do the whole group and not have to worry about it. So there's different ways on the benefit side to start adding some more benefits in that are no cost to the employee or employer. So there are three main kind of businesses that we see where structures of 401ks, SEP IRAs, which are for individuals, generally sole practitioners, realtors, contractors, individuals that are just by themselves. So generally that good little mix. SEP IRA, simple plans are generally for companies somewhere in the 10 to 15 range, very inexpensive to administer. There are some limitations on contributions, but it's a sort of a good starter plan before the 401k and then the 401k, 25 to plus employees. There are administrative costs, there are headaches, there are fiduciary concerns. So making sure you kind of have an expert on one of those, and then communication. You know, your employee has to know kind of what the difference between a simple and a 401k is, and why did we choose that as an employer versus the other side. So making that sure that is a clear communication on what the benefit is and how that helped. Also, any questions? Throw something at me, yell at me, stop me, please. I can talk too fast sometimes. So I also want to show this. This is just something I added in just from personal knowledge. Contributions are always going up. Okay, so this year between 24 and 25, you see there's a $500 raise on simple IRA contributions you can max out, 150 on HSA contributions for single, and HSA contribution for family. If that's not being properly communicated, you know, now you could have an employee who's kind of mad to say, hey, why didn't anybody tell me that I couldn't up my contribution for my HSA for my family? Or why didn't anybody tell me that I could up my simple IRA? So this is something that changes on an annual basis. So having that ally, having that communication, having that education out there is really important. So the big one, I think, talking to somebody over here, Dave, maybe, Virginia, and I guess, does anybody heard of the Virginia retirement path plan that was mandated about a year and a half ago? A few? Anybody give me a rough idea of what it is, what it do, what the purpose of it is? I can do that.
If you have 25 employees or more, you have to offer retirement, otherwise you are charging penalties and then they have to contribute to a retirement in the private state.
You're right, correct. We'll give you, if you win a prize for that.
Yeah.
There are prizes today. I didn't mention that. 100% correct. So Virginia looked at the overall atmosphere and noticed a whole of retirement plans that were not being really serviced because, I mean, administrative costs on some retirement plans are $2,000 to $4,000 for a starter. So some small businesses, that's a pretty big hit. So Virginia said, hey, anybody who's under 25, you kind of have to do something. So the main contribution, so there are for and after tax contributions are limited. So it's not 22,500 like a 401k. The most an employee can put in is 6,500. There is an employer match, but it's not as good and robust as the 401k side. It's not customizable. This is kind of a government ran 401k. There's pros and cons to it. There's some companies that don't have the funds to do this for their employees. So at least the employees are getting something, right? The con is that 401ks are a lot more robust. You can put a lot more money into 401ks. They're customizable, a lot more education, a lot more robust. So it's not a one size fit all. So it is something, but you know, it's something that when we talk to employers around this range, there's a lot of pluses and negatives. The important part too is that the government has done something where they, for the next 3 years, are giving, if you start a 401k, they're going to give you tax deductibility 100% up to the first 3 years on the startup. So the government is really trying, especially the state of Virginia, to push people towards the 401k and the retirement benefit space. Any questions? Good. We talked about wellness programs. We talked about benefits. a lot of companies, especially pre-COVID, seem like they put every benefit out there under the sun to try to attract employees. But what's really important to them? This was a study done in 2022, Wellbeing, so after 2020. All these other extra benefits didn't really do much. I mean, there's some people, I mean, you talk about the auto and the home insurance access, 21% of employees liked it. So, adding a full menu of all these expenses to the employer sometimes doesn't really make much of a difference. So now the shift is being, what can the employer add without adding expenses to the bottom line? The ones we see primarily, 529 college savings access. That's generally no cost to the employer and starting to pick up quite a bit. Like I talked about some of those group insurance policies. And the big one is financial wellness workshops. So financial wellness workshops, there are quite a few firms around the Richmond area that are doing a great job at it for sure, that offer these types of workshops without any cost to the employer. Okay, so it's doing your due diligence, doing some research, finding that firm that works with your company and your individuals. There's some that work better with nonprofits. There's some that work better with startups. There's some that work better with general contractors. It kind of depends on the overall situation, but having a company or relationship to add in this to an offering is now very beneficial because it allows your employees to get access to it that's not coming from you directly. Let's see here. Let's skip a few to try to get through. So implementing. This is kind of important because let's just say you get ready to do a wellness workshop, you're excited, and then you say, here it is on the 15th, so-and-so's coming in, and then 3 people show up. That happens. It happens to us quite a bit. The companies that kind of seem to do a little bit better, communication, and also starts from the top. When I see the managers and the owners and the HR in those meetings, generally we have a full house, right? If your boss isn't going, maybe I could skip and go out and grab that Starbucks. But, having it come from the top starting, and then also incentives, having a lunch, doing something on the communication side. Zoom has been very beneficial. We do for all of our courses, we'll do an in-person and then we do an afternoon and an evening Zoom. So we have most of our people show up in the evening. They're at home, they're done with the kids, all that stuff. They hop on a Zoom around 7 o'clock and they can get kind of some answers that they don't normally get during the normal work day. So I think it's access is really the big thing nowadays. And then I'll give you an idea of I'll show you one in a second. So understanding employee needs, that's kind of the big thing is looking at your employees and saying, are most of mine on the older side, younger side, where's their education level currently? Start small and scale up. You get something repetitive, people get used to it. Just like here, these events, this starts growing as people talk and communicate. Same things with companies. You start small and seeing who can build up from there. Communicate company support and then track the progress, make adjustments, work with whoever firm you use to provide some access to grow and build from there. So what does a good workshop look like? The big one by far is retirement. Out of all the ones we do, we get retirement, the requested one 98% of the time. I mean, there's some concern on college savings, there's some concern on obviously debt and savings and management and banking, but retirement's the big one out there for sure. So I'm gonna go through this quickly to be mindful of time and just make sure that you all kind of understand what are things that are important to talk about and where we see the main kind of concerns. So in retirement, you're likely to be on a fixed income, have infinite amount of savings of a finite amount of savings and assets, and have short to recover any from financial setbacks. So we look at longevity, we look at inflation, we look at a rate of withdrawal, asset allocation, and then healthcare. Longevity risk, that's the big one out there. We don't know how long people are going to live, especially younger people with technology coming on. We don't know how long the retirement's going to look like in 30 years. Right now, the average retirement's around 32 to 33 years, but that could be 40 years and 20 years from now. So men do typically not live as long as women. We're a little dumber sometimes and probably eat a little worse. It just kind of depends on planning for that, making sure you understand this is not a 5-year event. This is a long event to plan for with a lot of risks. The longer you live, the more you will need to have saved. So we talked through longevity and then the inflation risk out there. We all know that. We've all seen 2018. We've all in 2020, and we've felt those type of inflation pinches. And so we have to make sure that we have a plan to grow, to build, and make sure our employees are still adding and saving money on a consistent basis. There's a reason why those increases are happening every single year on 401ks and the availability on contributions. If your employees aren't keeping up with it, they're staying stagnant, they're going to be on your books for quite a long time. Withdrawal risk. This is the big one out there of how much do you take off an account? What's the availability of it lasting forever? So this just looks at a retirement account, assuming that they retire at 250,000. You're taking 4% off, your money will last till age 92. If you are an individual that needs to take 20,000 off or 8% just to make retirement, it's a good chance you're going back to work at age 80. So, you know, having that communication with employees of, there's a lot of people out there that may say, hey, I've got $250,000. I can make this last for as long as I need to, right? $250,000 with inflation in the mix, with taxes in the mix, with everything on that side. It's not a huge number. So our job is to get to them on an early basis, to start as fast as they can, as much as they can, start with that 1%, slowly increase if we can when time is right, but have those conversations. Withdrawal rate, oh, sorry, going the wrong way, apologize. Systematic return risk. So what this means is you retired in 2022, right? 2022, the market was down at its worst by about 32%. That's a tough year to retire. So what can we do in the conversations that we have is right before you retire, adding some sort of volatility buffer into a 401k, into an IRA, into a simple IRA plan, to where you have a portion in cash or short-term bonds to weather a 1 year to 2 year of income in the event of a major market downturn. Most employers, HR, are not having that conversation, right? The one thing you don't want to do as an employer is have that call 2 years later from that employee that retired to say, hey, I had a bad market. My account went from 1 million down to 600,000. I'm nervous. Can I come back part-time? Can I come back full-time? It happens. We see it. That's what we're trying to avoid. So what happens in the same situation, right? Down market, right at the beginning of retirement, 35%, ran out of money at 89. Same scenario, but now we took cash out instead. At 95, they got $2 million. So just having those type of conversations that most people aren't having, that's our job. That's what employee education helps out with. We go through rate of withdrawals, asset allocation, how much should you have stocks, how much should you have in cash, how much should you have in bonds. These are not questions that HR should be answering. That's a liability for you. If you're not a legal fiduciary, that's a situation that puts you in a dangerous spot. So many times I know that employees go to the owner and say, hey, I've never done a 401k before, where do I put it? That's a tough situation. And then healthcare, Ben, you want to mention a few things on healthcare?
Yeah, sure. You left me the fun stuff, talking about all the bad stuff that happens to you when you get older. I want to be for 5 minutes. He's much more eloquent than I am too, so bear with me here. This is really not to scare you, it's just to talk about some of the things that rise up as you get older when it comes to how much this is going to cost and why you have to plan for it in advance. You mentioned earlier you got to start early when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So there's 2 different types of health risks as you get in your later in life. You've got acute health risks, which is just one-time payments that you have to take care of when they come up. You've also got chronic risks, which are going to go on for a long time. And those are the ones that are really going to eat into your savings. And those are the most important reasons why you have to plan in advance when it comes to stuff and comes to preparing for retirement. So that stroke itself will be an acute risk. I was looking into this last night. But you've got a lot of lasting effects that come from a stroke, which are going to take a long time to recover and get back to normal. And those are the things that are really going to eat into your savings and why you've got to prepare for events that can happen like this. You've got dementia and Alzheimer's. I've got family that have Alzheimer's. I'm starting to see myself from personal experience how expensive that can get in each and every part of your life. It's something you've really got to prepare for when it comes to financially. Injury, nervous system disorders. It's all just a lot of stuff that can come up really around your 70s or 80s that gets really expensive. And if you start preparing for it in your 40s or 50s, it's going to save a lot of money in the long run. Chronic health risk, it goes back on what I was just talking about. Can exceed monthly retirement budgets. So a lot of times when you factor in, you start preparing for retirement, this is just something you need to factor in advance. You might be healthy now in your 40s, 50s, 30s even, but you don't know what's going to happen down the road. So you've got to factor in a lot of this stuff now in advance when it comes to preparing your budget when you're retired. He was talking about a lot of people are retired now for 20 years. It could be 30 years down the line. That's a lot more to prepare for as time goes on. Here's just some of the costs. I'm told you myself, I'm starting to see for myself personally from some family members I've got just how expensive this stuff can get. If you're full on staying in a nursing home, you're looking at close to $8,000 a month. That's getting up close to 6 figures a year for staying in a nursing home. And you never know what can happen. Someone can be healthy and get hit with a stroke out of nowhere. So you've got to prepare for stuff, the unknowns that can pop up as time goes on. We've also got home health aid costs, assisted living, adult day health. Difference between a nursing home and assisted living. Nursing home, you're staying there full time and everything has to be done for you. And that's the really expensive one. Assisted living, you're able to do some stuff yourself and that's a little bit cheaper. You care, that stuff, things that come up over time will be handled by your actual healthcare insurance. That's why it's important to have healthcare insurance throughout your life, not just when you're younger. Get it when you're younger, it'll be cheaper in the long run. But you've got Medicaid and Medicare that can step in, health savings accounts that he briefly spoke about earlier. Those can help the one-offs just when something comes up out of nowhere. But the chronic care is what you've really got to focus on with stuff like long-term care insurance, Medicaid, hands-on support from family and loved ones, asset protection strategies. That's the more complicated side of it. And that's where we step in and talk to you guys about what to be prepared for and what to get ready for.
That's the big thing too, especially when we do these seminars, is people, especially employees, are not taking advantage of HSA, especially HSAs with matches. We're unfortunately, people are stretched that, and same thing, anything we can do to kind of prepare for, that stroke, God forbid something happens on that side. And now you've got an employee who doesn't have money at all in savings, doesn't have anything in the HSA. They're still on your kind of payroll. And now it's some tough conversations to try to figure out. So our whole thing and our whole big push on financial wellness is one, it's an added benefit to your employees. It takes liability off your books. That's the biggest thing. Liability, we live in a litigious world. It's only getting worse. So making sure that you have a plan already in force to say that an employee can't come back in 20 years and say, they never taught me anything. They didn't tell me what to do. I had all my money in XYZ stuck in cash and it's their fault, right? So that's the importance of it. It's an ever growing world on it. And it's a good time to kind of get things out on the communication side that we've never seen before. It's a lot easier to get this out than it used to be. Any questions? Concerns? Thoughts?
I'll say one more thing. I come from a family who was very hush-hush when it came to talking about money. I'm not sure if anybody grew up in a similar situation. So I was just in the dark a lot when it came to finances growing up. And it left me as being 18, 21 years old, not really knowing what I was doing. When it came to finances, you're seeing more and more people for the younger generation. They're more open about talking about salary, talking about stuff like this we're talking about now. And I think in the long run, that's going to be a positive because people are just more educated when it comes to this stuff. So that's what we're here for, to make sure people are educated, get an open conversation going so people know what's going on. They're educated and they can better handle their own finances because of that.
Yes, sir.
Great presentation. I noticed you didn't mention the Roth rate.
Yep. So I didn't want to jump too much into it. I mean, Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks. This year, the federal government just allowed for Roth simple IRAs. So that's a huge additive, especially for small businesses. They used to not allow Roth simple contributions at all. So what Roth IRA, just high level, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Money goes in, your employer match goes to the traditional side, which is the 401k or the IRA. Your Roth portion is not tax deductible. It grows tax deferred and taken off for retirement after age 59.5 is 100% tax free. So that education, most plans we see, especially with a simple switch now, plans that don't offer Roth benefits are going to be kind of in the Stone Age and not really look that well upon in the future because of the simple access now to. Great point. That's a very good thing to make sure you're communicating to employees, especially young employees. I mean, if you're not putting money away that's tax free later on, that can really hurt somebody and or really benefit at the same token too. Great question.
We could be up here for a long time, talking about a lot of different stuff. But
if y'all have any questions, like I said, we're upstairs. Ben's going to be around here all day too. So, we're happy to help and we're a resource. And I built my career 20 years ago working with Better Business Bureau accredited companies, kind of how I got myself going. So anything we can do to give back and help out is something that I really think is important in this world. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Ignite, sparked by BBB, where conversations are taking place to change the future.